Cold starlight filtered through the viewports of the Astra's Vigil, its pale glow washing over the polished metal of the bridge like the ghost of a forgotten dawn. Captain Celine Voss stood at the center, her posture taut as a drawn bow, eyes fixed on the holo-display suspended in midair. Round her, a dozen officers and technicians moved in hushed precision, their murmurs a steady undercurrent beneath the steady hum of the ship's life support systems. It had been nearly a decade since Voss had taken command of this vessel's sleek, modular cruiser designed for reconnaissance and rapid response. The Astra's Vigil had earned its name in the War of the Shattered Gate, harrying pirate flotillas and salvaging lost colonies along the fractured spiral of the Seraphim Arm. Yet even as battlefields and lawless sectors drifted into legend, Voss felt the nagging restlessness of a hunter drawn to a scent only she could perceive. That scent had come first as a whisper on the subspace net, a stray ping, so low-powered as to be noise. Scuttlebutt spoke of an ancient human transponder, beacon awakening on the edge of known space. Humanity, after all, was supposed to be a buried myth, a nostalgia-tinged cautionary tale about the original starfarers, who had sown their seeds across dozens of worlds before vanishing in a cataclysmic civil war. No one alive could recall a fully intact Titan-class ship, much less one hibernating in the void. "Status report," Voss said, voice echoing like metal on metal. "Lieutenant Commander Hymen." The chief sensor officer tapped at a holo interface. "We've isolated the signature, 30 light seconds off the starboard bow, dead in the water. No emissions beyond the archaic transponder pulse. Hull matrix appears quiescent, no fusion or antimatter reactions detectable. Passive graviton. Scans suggest an object of roughly 30 kilometers in length." 30 kilometers. Voss's pulse quickened. That was the length of an entire battlering, the kind of supercapital ship that had shaped the early decades of human expansion. She remembered the faded star charts back home in Orion Station. The warning scrawled in the margins, "Beware, the Titans." Now, here one was, or rather, here it had been all along. Navigator Caro Kal leaned in, her lavender-tinted eyes narrowing. "Are you certain this is a Titan-class hull? Could be a relic converted by scavengers, an amalgam of older wreckage. Compare the geometry," Voss replied. "Layered curvatures along the dorsal plates, the ventral ballast pods. This isn't scavenged scrap. It's pristine." She reached out and adjusted the holo's projection, rotating the three-dimensional rendering of the vessel. "See, the pylons, those support struts are reinforced with tri-organic alloy, interlaced with living biomatrix. That technology faded from common use 2 centuries ago." A soft murmur of disbelief rippled across the bridge. The Astra's Vigil crew prided itself on cutting-edge tech, gravitic torches, zero-point drives, neural mesh uplinks, but human relic tech was in a class of its own, arcane, uncharted, and often dangerous beyond measure. "All right," Voss said, gripping the edge of the command dais. "Prepare a spectral sweep and minimal power excitation. I want to see its lights, hear its heartbeat, but keep shields hot and weapons cold. No one fires until I give the order." "Aye, Captain." Min's fingers danced over the console. Excitation protocols loaded, initiating in 3, 2, 1. The bridge dimmed as systems shifted into high-sensitivity mode. The holo display flickered. The Titan's hull glowed faintly, veins of iridescent energy pulsing beneath the surface. For a moment, it resembled a massive bioluminescent sea creature drifting through darkness. Then nothing, no response, Min reported. Structural integrity intact. No detectable internal power, aside from thermal background. Voss exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing only marginally. "Send a communication. Beacon, standard hail, Astra's Vigil, representing the Unified Expanse Coalition. Identify yourselves and loop it on all channels. Sublight beacon, hyperspace lanes, private nets. Let every listening station know we found something big." "Broadcasting," answered Communications Officer Lyra Dane, her voice calm despite the stakes. She keyed in the sequence and leaned back. "Transmission complete. Response time, none. Silence." Followed, vast and heavy. It settled over the bridge like a threat. In that stillness, Voss allowed herself to consider the enormity of the discovery. If one Titan-class ship had survived the centuries, and not merely survived, but drifted unchallenged. In a strategic corridor, it meant other relics might still lurk in forgotten systems. It suggested that the old human fleets had been more resilient than any historian dared admit. "Captain," Kal said, pointing to the sensor console, "I'm getting fluctuations weak, but consistent. Something inside is convulsing." Min frowned. That could be residual power cells cycling through maintenance routines. Or it could be, well, something else. Voss regarded the shimmering shape on the holodisplay. The thought made her breath catch. A living ship, its engines thrumming. In silent slumber, awaiting orders from a captain long gone. "Prepare the launch bay," she said evenly. "We're sending an away team." 2 hours later, Voss and her hand-picked crewmen, Kal, Dane, and a security officer stepped into the airlock of a sleek shuttlecraft. Outside, the Titan-class ship loomed like a colossal phantom, its hull mottled with streaks of cosmic dust and pale nebular gas. The shuttle's docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thrum, and the airlock cycled inside the shuttle's observation deck. The lights dimmed as the bays opened to the void. The vacuum beyond rippled with the heat signature of distant stars. Voss felt the hull shudder as the Titan registered their presence. The pulsing veins of energy grew brighter, then faded to a steady glow. "Docked and pressurized," reported the shuttle pilot. "Ready to board." Voss tapped her helmet's comlink. "On my mark." She drew breath, steadying herself against a surge of adrenaline. "Mark." The hatch cycled open. They stepped onto the ancient hull, boots crunching on a surface that felt organic underfoot, warm, textured, almost alive. Ahead lay a long corridor, lit by bioluminescent filaments woven into the walls. The air was stale but breathable, filtered through the ship's own life support. Min knelt beside a maintenance panel carved with archaic glyphs. "This interface, it's neural. I need to sync through a psionic link. Stand by." Cal's eyes widened. "Psionic link. We'll have to map our neural patterns to what? A ship AI that's also alive. That's dangerously symbiotic." "Do it," Voss ordered softly. She placed a reassuring hand on Min's shoulder. "We need to know what we're dealing with." Min closed her eyes and attached a slender neural probe to her temple. Across her visor, ancient schematics sprang to life. Subspace conduits, maintenance batteries, habitat domes. She gasped, her shoulders quivering. "Status?" Voss asked, voice gentle. Min's hand trembled as she withdrew the probe. "It's a living archive. The ship has memories of battles, colonies, voices of millions long dead. It's been dreaming for centuries." Dane approached, her recorder humming. "Dreaming? Does it wake up when we connected?" Min shook her head. "No, it just stirred. But I did feel something, a pull. Like a tidal wave in my mind, whispers in every language known to humanity." Voss swallowed. "Can it be controlled? Can we steer it?" Before Min could answer, the corridor plunged into darkness. The bioluminescent filaments faded, and the corridor's walls rippled as if the ship itself were breathing. A low vibration thrummed through the hull. Cal's voice crackled over comm. "Captain, sensors are picking up a distortion. The local space-time matrix is shifting." "Back to the shuttle," Voss ordered. Now, they sprinted through the corridor as the floor rippled beneath them, planks of bioalloy bending like rubber. At the airlock, Dane's fingers flew over the console. "Seal is jammed," she cried. "The hull's contracting." Min grabbed the hydraulic release. Sparks flew, and the airlock door groaned open. They tumbled inside, slamming the outer hatch shut just as the corridor behind them curved inward. The shuttle shook violently as the Titan stabilized, the hum subsiding to a low pulse. Voss pressed her helmet against the viewport. The corridor outside had collapsed, the organic walls fusing together. "Get us clear," she told the pilot. The engines flared, and the shuttle backed away from the Titan-class ship. From her vantage, Voss saw the great vessel inscrutably still. No lights flickered. No alarms sounded. It waited in the shuttle's hold. The crew exchanged shaken glances. Kal was pale. "Whatever that thing is, it's alive and it's learning." Min closed her eyes. "And it won't remain dormant much longer." Voss exhaled. "Then we have but one choice." She looked at each of them in turn, determination hardening her features. "We wake the giant." Outside, the silent beacon pulsed. Once more and the galaxy held its breath. A shudder ran through the Astra's vigil as if the ship itself were taking a startled breath. Captain Voss remained in the command chair, eyes narrowed, watching the tactical display. Outside the forward viewport, the colossal form of the Titan-class vessel drifted in perfect silence, its bioluminescent veins dimmed to an imperceptible glow. For a moment, nothing happened until the gravity sensors spiked. Unnatural fluctuations. Navigator Kal said, voice tight. It's a stirring. Voss rose to her feet. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuver. Shields to full. Engines hot. Reinforce every bulkhead. The crew sprang into motion. Alarm klaxons echoed down the corridors, engineering rerouted. Auxiliary power to the primary shields, while gunners powered up the rail batteries, a futile gesture against something designed to withstand nuclear nova bursts, but one they could not forego. Min's console lit up with half a dozen warnings. Captain, the Titan's gravitic aura is expanding. It's forming a containment sphere out to 500 kilometers, drawing in inert matter. Is our hull integrity compromised? Voss demanded. Not yet, Min replied. But if it continues at this rate, we'll be inside its event horizon. Voss clenched her fists. Then we have to finish the wake-up sequence now. She glanced at Communications Officer Dane. Repeat the excitation code on maximum amplitude. Flood the portal conduits with every pulse we have. Dane's fingers danced over the console. Emitting in 3, 2, 1 now. A burst of harmonized tachyon pulses cascaded toward the Titan, striking its hull in a kaleidoscope of prismatic flashes. Moments later, the ship answered. A wave of force rolled outward, knocking the Astra's vigil off its vector. Systems flickered under the strain. The ship groaned. Report, Voss barked. Our forward sensors are offline, Kal said. But long-range arrays show the Titan's dorsal pylons unfolding. Like ribs in a cosmic leviathan. Min's eyes widened as she saw the readout. Fusion canisters are activating. It's charging a mega-arc reaction along the spine. Can we sever the pylons? Voss asked. Min shook her head. They're protected by reactive plasma shields tied into the singularity containment field. Cutting them would destabilize the entire reactor. Voss's mind raced. The Titan's core housed an artificial singularity and apex reactor, capable of generating gravitational fields strong enough to tear asteroids apart. If it went critical, well, she dared not imagine. Helm, lateral thrusters at maximum. Pull us clear of the halo's expansion at all costs. As the Astra's vigil lurched sideways, a column of light erupted from the Titan's spine. It reached far into space, a luminous lance that split the darkness. Within the beam, the surfaces of distant planets shimmered, starfields distorted as if reality itself were being hammered into new shape. On the Titan's bridge, if one could call it that, a human-shaped avatar flickered into view. It hovered at the prow, translucent and monolithic, its eyes glowing with unearthly intensity. Humanity calls for reckoning. The words formed in every mind on the Astra's vigil, bypassing speakers and wiring. They resonated in the marrow of bones and the cores of their neural implants. Voss's throat went dry. What does it want? Min hesitated. I think it's communicating directly with our neural meshes. It's learning our language, our thoughts. The avatar raised a hand. A ripple of gravimetric energy swept across the sector, touching the Astra's vigil like a caress. Voss felt her limbs grow heavy as though the ship's gravity grips had reached through her chair and taken hold. Captain, Kal cried. We're being overridden. Suddenly, the helm went dead. Engines cut out. The shields flickered, then collapsed entirely under the stress of the Titan's containment field. The Astra's vigil began to drift helplessly toward the colossal ship, pulled by forces no conventional drive could resist. Voss grabbed the arms of her chair. Eject the command module. No time. Kal shouted back. Even the escape pods are locked down. Psionic seal. Voss's mind raced. Their only hope lay in disabling the neural link before it seized every saps. Min, can you break the psionic lockdown? Min's face was pale beneath her helmet. If I can overload the ship's neural buffer with white noise, it might collapse the link long enough for us to regain control. Do it. Voss's voice was steel. Men keyed a sequence into her console. The ship's calm rails shrieked with random bursts of feedback, and a storm of static-filled psionic interference washed across the bridge. Crew members convulsed as the mental onslaught fought for dominance. A few collapsed, writhing as their neural implants shorted out. Voss fought to stay conscious, teeth gritted. KL locked gazes with her. "Captain, hold on. We're breaking free, slowly." The Astra's vigil shuddered, the yoke of external gravity lifting. The engines spat to life, and with a roar, the ship jerked away. Alarms blared, systems rebooted. The avatar on the Titan's prow shuddered, its form flickering. This is but the beginning. Then it vanished. The beam along the spine retracted into the pylons, which hissed as they folded back into the hull. The containment sphere receded. The vast corridor of influence shrank until it dissolved, leaving the Titan-class ship once more inert. Its bioluminescence extinguished. Silence reclaimed the void. The Astra's vigil floated, battered but free, 10 kilometers from the giant's hull. The bridge crew breathed raggedly, some nursing bleeding temples, others simply staring at the holo display in disbelief. Voss rose unsteadily, voice hoarse. "Status, Minran diagnostics. Shields at 20%, engines at 60. Neural mesh burst warning 30 crew incapacitated. But we're intact." Voss nodded. "Good. Bring us closer 10 kilometers. I want another look." QAL hesitated. "Captain, after that display, are you certain?" Voss's gaze traveled to the silent colossus. Its smooth, featureless hull absorbed the starlight like a void. "Yes," she sounded calm, even resolute. "We have to understand it before it decides what the rest of the galaxy deserves." As the Astra's vigil glided forward, soft alarms in the sensor array ticked upward. Deep within the Titan's core, the singularity reactor pulsed once, twice, as if awakening from the deepest slumber. And somewhere, beyond the reach of any scan, the mind of the ship stirred, readying itself for the reckoning to come. A deathly calm blanketed the Seraphim arm as the Titan-class ship, christened Judicator by the once-human Enclave, drifted inexorably toward the galactic core. Across the void, every major power mobilized at once, in orbit around the crystal spires of Rimith Prime. The Allori Conclave unleashed psionic tempester ships, whose hulls were etched with fractal runes that could shatter minds at starlight speed. On the black sands of Varus III, the Zeri Dominion marshaled its crystalline dreadnoughts, each hull a lattice of living gem that bent laser fire into shards of supercooled death. And from the forges of Vulcan Station, the Terran Forge sent forth steel leviathans bristling with coilgun batteries and graviton lances. Yet in every case, as fleets converged to intercept, their weapons dissolved into the Judicator's event horizon, its artificial singularity swallowing kinetic projectiles and energy beams alike. The Judicator didn't so much fire back as reshape reality around its pylons' folding space, to collapse enemy formations into singular microvoids, leaving only splintered echoes on long-range sensors. 1. Rallying the lost in the bowels of the Judicator, the ragged human descendants convened in a makeshift command chamber carved from living bone steel. Their leader Mara Selwyn, a descendant of the original colonists, strode before a holographic map of the galaxy. Lines of light, indicating the Judicator's path of renewal. Her voice held both ferocity and sorrow. "The ship was our cradle. It was our downfall," she said, eyes alight with fervor. "Now it is our sword. We will fight beside it, not against it, because only total destruction of the old guards can forge the new dawn." Round her, survivors from desert moons and jungle worlds exchanged determined nods. They carried improvised pulse rifles and psionic dampers stolen from Allori enclaves. Their sacrifice squads had already made suicidal boarding runs to overload auxiliary reactors aboard the Judicator. But the ship's living hull repaired itself faster than they could breach it. Mara's hand hovered over the projection. "Prepare. The metasonic bomb. It will resonate with the core's containment field. If we trigger it at the apex of the reactor cycle, we might fragment the singularity long enough for a universal cascade resetting everything." A technician's voice cracked. "If it fails, we all die." Mara's gaze softened. "We all die if it succeeds, but out of death, life returns too." Conclave's ultimatum above the Judicator's course. The Alluri fleet gathered in ring formation round a pulsar, high above the crystal masts of their command ship, Oracle of the Shattered Light. The Conclave's matriarch and eight-limbed scion of legendary potency broadcast a final plea. Judicator, her voice chimed through every telepathic channel. Stand down. You destroy not only the corrupt, but the innocent. Mercy is the highest law of sentience. No reply came. Instead, the Judicator's dorsal pylons glowed violet, as if the ship itself listened and considered. Then it extended one of those pylons and fired a beam that cleaved the Oracle in two. Crystalline shards, each imbued with Alluri consciousness, tumbled into the pulsar's magnetosphere and dissolved. In the aftermath, drifts of ghost light hummed across the void. The Alluri fleet recoiled, their psionic storms faltering. Without a nexus to channel through, Commander Laura Veen, clad in iridescent armor, issued the command, retreat and regroup with the Coalition. We cannot contain this alone. Threat forges last hammer in the frontier world of Vulcan Station. The Terran Forge rallied every dreadnought still serviceable after centuries of civil war. Captain Rourke Malik, face bristling with burn scars, stood before the holo map in the High Command bunker. Red arcs traced the Judicator's route. With grim resolve, he turned to his lieutenants. We punch through their pylons. We cram 107 Gauss graviton charges at the hull joints. It's our only angle of attack. His engineer offered a cautious glance. Those joints are part of the Singularity's stabilizers. If we break them, the shielding might collapse, but the explosion could trigger a cataclysm hundreds of light years wide. Malik nodded. Then we make damn sure we're far enough away. At midnight station time, the Forge's Armada 300 steel Leviathans dropped out of hyperspace. In formation around the Judicator, Gravlances flared, shellboats raced forward. For a moment, hope surged, but the Judicator responded. With a wave of temporal compression, the Forge ships aged centuries in microseconds, their circuits frying, their crews crumbling to dust. Only Malik's flagship, Iron Sunder, survived long enough to launch its grav charges. They struck the stabilizer pylons and detonated in a roaring riposte of collapsed spacetime that left nothing but a quivering void. For Coalition's heartbreak with the three great powers shattered. The Unified Expanse Coalition convened its Emergency War Council on Proxima Centauri. The Ambassador Suri Takaza, representing the surviving minor races, voiced a plea born of desperation. We must negotiate. We cannot continue this slaughter. Humanity's last sons and daughters have sacrificed enough. But Captain Voss, now interim coalition commander, silenced the room with a raised hand. Her uniform was stained with the residue of Judicator drive fallout. Her eyes carried the weight of every fallen ship. There is no parley with a god machine bent on judgment. Only an eradication gambit can save what remains of the galaxy. Across the holotable, several ambassadors rose in shock. You propose genocide, they demanded. No, Voss said, voice trembling with controlled rage. I propose salvation. We will not be bystanders while living singularity rewrites existence. We make one last stand here and now. Behind her, KL and Min exchanged fearful glances. Each knew the price would be unimaginable. 5. The brink of oblivion and the black beyond Proxima's ruins. The Coalition fleet 20,000 ships formed a crescent of fire and steel. At its heart, a makeshift superweapon, the Phoenix Cannon. Born from fusion core remnants and grav amplification lenses culled from every surviving yard. It was an anti-singularity device designed to reverse the Judicator's reactor at subatomic scale. Voss took the con of her flagship, Astra's Vigil, and addressed the fleet over open comms. Today we face the culmination of every mistake we've ever made. But we're more than conquerors or slaves. We're creatures of hope. And hope outlives even the blackest void. Aim for the core. Fire on my mark. As the crescent tightened, the Judicator's shape filled every sensor, an abyss draped in living metal. Its central pylon ignited with blinding brilliance. A single pulse rolled outward, testing the Coalition's resolve. Ships buckled, captains screamed, and thousands more were folded into quantum oblivion. Cal's voice crackled in Voss's ear, it shielding itself with micro-event horizons. The Phoenix Cannon will need every reaction charge we have and then some. Voss swallowed. Load the capacitor belts. Prime the auxiliary focus emitters. Below decks, the last squads of human descendants prepared the metasonic bomb beneath the Judicators. Starboard flank a final layer to the assault threads, physical devastation, spacetime reversal, and living rupture. 6. Collision of fates at 0600 hours ship time. Voss gave the order. A symphony of war crescendos erupted as the coalition fired. The Phoenix cannon's barrel at the bow of Astra's Vigil shone white-hot. All around, tens of thousands of weapons discharged. In the instant the energy bolt struck, the Judicator responded by collapsing a micro-black hole directly atop the impact site. Reality buckled. Time frayed. The very fabric of space cracked like glass. But just as the Judicator's singularity threatened to cascade, the metasonic bomb detonated. A pulse of psychoacoustic resonance surged through the Judicator's living hull, shattering the containment lattice. The artificial singularity flickered, momentarily destabilized. The Phoenix cannon's beam found its mark. A beam within a beam, collapse within collapse. The Judicator's pylons erupted in a supernova of mutated spacetime. The Coalition flagship shook violently. Outside the viewport, a nova of violet light blinded every eye. Then nothing. Silence, darkness. The ships that survived drifted in the void, their engines offline, their comms dead. No scans registered any mass where the Judicator had been. The great god machine had collapsed into itself, leaving behind only a fractured rift in space. Captain Voss's voice broke over the calm frequency. "This is the Astra's Vigil. Is anyone there?" A single crackling reply came back from the outer perimeter. We're here." But the void. Cal's eyes flickered on the console. "The rift's closing. If it seals, we lose even the data logs on what happened." Voss exhaled, sweat stinging her eyes. "Then we have one chance. Launch the recon drones into the rift before it collapses completely. We need to know what cost we've paid." As the recon pods released into the dying rift, the Coalition fleet gathered its broken survivors. Their victory was incomplete, their losses staggering. Yet in that haunted silence, they dared to believe the Judicator's collapse was not an end but the final prelude to a new beginning. And somewhere, beyond the threshold of light and dark, the galaxy held its breath as the Phoenix fleet prepared to emerge from oblivion. The void was absolute. Silence pressed against the hull of the Astra's Vigil until even the hum of the engines seemed an impertinence. Captain Celine Voss floated at the viewport, watching the recon drones slip into the collapsing rift like motes of dust on a dying breeze. Behind her, the bridge crew held its breath. "Drone 1 entering rift," Navigator Caro Kal announced, voice barely above a whisper. "Signal nominal reading, nothing but static. No mass detected." "Drone 2, Voss prompted. "Same. The rift is sealing faster than our calculations. By my estimate, we have less than 10 seconds before it snaps shut completely." Min's gauntleted fingers flew over the comm console. "I'm pulling what little data we can. Energy readings, spacetime distortion logs, neural buffer residues." Her holodisplay flickered with half-loaded schematics of the Judicator's core. "But it's fragmentary, whatever remains in. The rift is minimal." Voss's jaw clenched. "Understood. Pull the drones back. Seal the rift data cache. We'll piece it together on the run." Kal keyed the recall command. Outside, the drones reversed course in perfect synchronicity until, at the very brink of closure, a faint ping jolted the sensors. "Captain," Cal's voice cracked, "Drone 3 is still sending its trajectory on the holoprojector." A single bright blip held position as the surrounding field collapsed. "It's inside the rift's heart, holding station." Cal's violet eyes were wide. "It's reading a residual gravimetric echo, something smaller than a ship, but solid." Min exhaled. "An escape pod, a satellite." She tapped at the interface. "No, it's life signs, something alive in there." Voss stared at the display, heart hammering. "Bring it aboard. Now." The airlock cycled in staccato whirs. The crew gathered as the retrieval clamp released its prize, a palm-sized cube of living metal, etched with the same tri-organic filigree as the Judicator's pylons. Its surface pulsed with soft, pearlescent light. Quarantine protocols, Dane intoned, leveling her scanner over the artifact. No hazardous energy. Signatures, it's dormant. Min slipped on gloves and gently lifted the cube. The moment her fingers made contact, the filigree flared, projecting a tiny hologram of the Judicator's central core, its singularity containment lattice. Frozen in mid-collapse, it's a data shard. Min breathed. A backup or, perhaps, an echo of the Judicator's mind. The cube dissolved into motes of light, scattering like bioluminescent plankton across the holodisplay. In that fractal cascade, the final moments of the Judicator played out. The metasonic bomb's resonance, the Phoenix cannon's beam, the fracturing of spacetime at the reactor's heart, and then, a flash of brilliant white before the world ended. Voss exhaled slowly. We have the judgment. Now we need the promise. 2 weeks later, the Astra's Vigil led the battered Coalition fleet through the drift of shattered worlds, toward the Seraphim Arm's outer reaches. In the wake of the Judicator's collapse, a spectrum of anomalies rippled through space gravity wells that bent starlight into impossible parabolas, pockets of time dilation where days stretched into centuries, and ghost echoes of lost sentiences, lingering like mist. Captain Voss convened her senior staff in the observation lounge, its panoramic windows framing a nebula cloud drenched in violet and gold. Kal hovered at the console, rotating a three-dimensional map of the emergent anomalies. Min stood beside her, clutching a data slate loaded with the fragile holographic echoes recovered from the shard. We lost most of the fleet in the collapse, Voss began, her tone steady but weary. But the survivors number in the thousands. We have an opportunity to forge something new, not built on conquest or fear. Dane pressed a control, bringing up a communications grid. Scattered colonies are responding, Allori enclaves, Zeri refugees, even Forge World craftsmen seeking asylum. They're hungry for leadership, Voss nodded. Then we give them one. A council representing every major culture, human descendants, Allori, Zeri, Forge kin, and the dozens of independent fringe races. Together, we will rebuild the great expanse as a mosaic, not a homogeneous empire. Caro's fingers traced a line across the map. I've identified safe corridors through the anomaly's stabilized paths. Where residual Judicator fields are weak, we can establish hubs for trade, research, and cultural exchange. Min tapped her data slate, and with the data shard's echoes, I can reconstruct the Judicator's neural lattice purged of its instantiation of judgment, and repurpose it as a living archive, a library of civilizations past, a record for future generations. Voss allowed herself a small smile, a beacon of knowledge rather than war. Good. Let's get to work. Months later, on the ruined plains of Elysian Prime, the first ruins of the new Coalition capital took shape. Architects from 36 worlds pitched domes of crystal, plating of living stone, and corridors woven from adaptive polymers. In the heart of the city rose the ecosphere, a spire of shimmering light that housed the reconstituted neural lattice of the Judicator, now renamed the Archivist. Ambassador Suritekaz spoke at the dedication ceremony beneath the spire. From the ashes of judgment, we choose understanding. From the remnants of despair, we forge hope. Let this ecosphere stand as a testament to our collective will and enduring promise that life, in all its forms, shall flourish together. Captain Voss and Mara Selwyn stood side by side, once adversaries united in a common cause, the human. Descendants watched with cautious eyes, but now their fervor was tempered by the knowledge that mercy could be the true measure of strength. As the Archivist lit the ecosphere with cascading waves of living data songs of Allori choristers, the crystalline mathematics of the Zeri, the forged hymns of Terran engineers, Voss felt a warmth bloom in her chest. The galaxy, reborn, pulsed with possibility. Years later, when children played in the shadow of the ecosphere and scholars debated in the amphitheaters of Elysian Prime, stories of the Titan-class ship became legend. Some whispered that, in the depths of the Archivist, the spirit of the Judicator slept on, no longer a harbinger of doom, but the guardian of a new era. And at the center of the city, standing atop a pedestal carved from living crystal, a single monument bore the silhouette of the Titan's prow. Inscribed beneath it were words spoken by Mara Selwyn, at the eve of the final attack, in judgment. We found our end, in compassion, our beginning, in the light of twin suns. The monument glowed softly, a promise that, no matter how vast the stars may loom, the smallest flicker of empathy can reshape the universe itself.